Alright, this is a very quick release overview for Atlas. I want to go down some of the changes, let you know of potential problems. We might find a bug or two, we'll see, and then I want to demo a couple of the new things. So this is release 2.2.0. I don't really know how I'm supposed to increment this, but I'm going with it, you know. So, I did a bunch of background changes. So essentially, up until this point, I've kind of been managing two separate code bases, one for Electron and one for the web server, and keeping those in sync was kind of a pain. So I did a ton of background logic restructuring in order to bring the two code bases closer together so it's easier. So now, 90% of the time, when I code something for the web version, it's just copy, paste, cherry pick the commits over to the Electron version, and there's no additional shenanigans I have to do. There's still some weird bug fixing here or there because I have to try to keep both versions in mind, but it's still much easier. So that's nice. UI changes. I've introduced this idea of a widget. The widget was something I had done already with the coordinate conversion widget, but I have thus far done something similar with the rest of them, which I'll walk you through and show you what that's like. For new features, we've added a new info widget, which I'll show you. I've added the ability to view belt zone information about a given celestial body. Points can now be given markdown descriptions. This is pretty big. Technically, objects have the same thing. And this is what my important note up here at the top is about. So essentially, I have added a new field to the points JSON data structure. It should be backwards compatible with what already exists. You should not lose any data, but any existing points you currently have will not have descriptions, in addition to the default points, right? So the gates, the origin stations, the transmitter stations, those are our defaults, right? Those guys, if you have been using the program, will not have descriptions initially. In order to see the default descriptions for those, you have to reset them. If you reset them, then any changes you have made to those points, that it'll be a full proper reset. So for future purposes, I would not rely on those default points to be persistent, right? Those are kind of meant to be static things that are in the world and not necessarily places for custom information. So just keep that in mind. In addition, and then there's a couple other things that I'll show you. So as always, right, you can find all the information and access everything on the GitHub repository. You'll see the new release. I just released it a few minutes ago. It'll be on the right. In here, you can download the executable if you're one of the people that uses the standalone. Or, as always, on the right, you can go to environments. You can hit GitHub pages here. And it'll show you the various deployments. Someone's currently using the old version right now, which I think is very nice, which is why it's still active. But this is our most recent deployment. You can also find a link to it down here. You can use the online version found here. So we're going to hop into this guy, and I'll show you around. So the big piece is on previous versions, which I wonder. Yeah, you might be able to do that. Nah. So, in previous versions, you would have this modal pop up in the middle of the screen whenever you wanted to manage your waypoints. I have since removed that. Now when you go to manage your waypoints, you've got a nice little condensed pop-up on the right here. This is the size of it for the most part. It's the same information, same functionality as the modal, but it doesn't obscure your view. You can still interact with things freely while it's up and about. You can create a waypoint, and this guy little pops up where you can give it a name, you can give it some group, I can go, etc., etc. In this create a waypoint, you'll notice a couple new things. First off, we have an IPS mode or an ISAN mode. I figured it would be good to have backwards compatibility, and so that people that have ISAN coordinates, if they want to see them on the map, there's a conversion. The way this works is I can flip to ISAN mode, and the map itself, right? These guys, the map, the coordinate grid functions on IPS. That will not change, period. the grid will always function off IPS, but what you can do is you can input ISAN coordinates, and it will automatically convert the ISAN coordinate to an IPS coordinate, right? So in this case, if I were to do something like this, then this is the converted IPS coordinate. I can click create, and you'll note it pops up right down here. You'll kind of note it's in line with the ISAN origin, right? It's lined up very nicely there, as you would expect. You'll also note you can now click a point and you'll get an info box on the left here. So it automatically switches between. If I click on north, for instance, you get north. So that's interesting. It's saying no description set. Oh, it's because, remember how I said before that descriptions aren't going to be set? That's the case right now. If I were to right click in space, reset my default points, it's going to do a full reset. Now the descriptions exist, so it kind of does a full reset. I've got some very basic description information on these guys. You see the name, you see the icon, you see the type, right? So if I look at this guy, this is going to be a gate, this is a transmitter station, this is an origin station, this is a custom, right? Because this is the custom point that we made. You can view it from here, you can copy the coordinate, which sticks it to your keyboard using the same format that I have defined here, right? For instance, I could now click paste, and it pastes the coordinate in, and it shows up. There's the ISAN coordinate that we typed in when we made this point. You can also, you've probably noticed, I've added the ability to edit points. So I can hop in here, I can click the edit button, and now it's got all the information as you would expect. Give it away, I can't type, updated, right? Can ramp that up to like 2. You can also give a description. This is the description editor area. It's a toggleable because, you know, you might not always want it to take up your screen. This uses Markdown, so I can do like, this is Markdown. This is the preview you have at the bottom, so I could do large heading, and you'll see we got a large heading. You could do a smaller header, you could do a bullet list, right? Or a numbered list, or whatever you want to do. So this uses a library called Marked, if you want to Google it. Otherwise, it's standard Markdown. And so what this lets you do, right, I'm currently editing, I can save the point. You'll notice the name updated on the left there. Give it a name updated if I click it. There's our description. With the Markdown correctly. And then in addition, you've got the option to delete, which I added a confirmation. This confirmation only appears here. I'm going to do a pass on confirmations and whatnot in the future. If you delete a waypoint from here, it's just a one click and it's gone. It's gone forever. So I'm going to work on adding some confirmations around deleting and more data sensitive operations in the future. But I could go in here and I could delete this guy and it's gone, as you would expect. So that's the gist of it. Of course, save here will also open a little modal or a little widget on the right, as you would expect, except since I'm in the web version, clicking save just downloads my JSON straight up. If you're using the Electron version, you will see a similar setup, just like import, as you would expect, is the same way. The other big guy, a while ago I added this piece, right? The ability to visually see the EOS zones. The belt zones. But there was no real information regarding this. What I've decided to do is, in addition to clicking on points to see their information, you can now click on celestial bodies. Eos is the only planet, of course, duh, it's the center, basic information. But for instance, I could go out here, I could click on, however you pronounce that, and you see the moon information, who it was named by, when it was named, whether or not it has a description. Most of the outer moons I don't have descriptions set. Eventually I will, once I decide to get creative. Eos has the only one that has a description, so there's some basic information. In addition, you can now view belt info. This is a toggle. So in addition to viewing the planet, to copying the planet's coordinate, let me move back down this way. You can now view belt information. And this was it's a first pass attempt at communicating the belt info. There's a lot of information. Not only does each zone have different kinds of ore. For instance, the green zone 1, I tried to match the colors, has Bastium, Vocarium, Nergite, and Corrodium. But it's also the various ores are contained in different things. So in here, Nergite's contained in ice. Where in zone 2, this blue area, Nergite's contained in agitite. So it's a lot of information. This was my first pass UI attempt on displaying that info. I think it works well. It's kind of squished, especially the zone 2, because there's 5 different ores in comparison to the others that only have 4 different ores. I might take another pass at this in the future, try to make it a little more cohesive, but for now, this is what we have. You probably also noticed, if I click on a moon that has a ring, I know this guy has a ring, this button still appears, but when you click it, it's just we have no belt data prepared for the moon. You can feel free to reach out to me if you do have belt information. Probably next steps is going to be the Elysium belt information. In which case I'll be pretty much taking what I've done with EOS and figuring out how to duplicate it in a simple manner for Elysium, and then I gotta manually go in and populate all the information. So if you have info about the belts, join the Discord, which you can also find a link down here at the bottom left. That'll take you straight to an invite link to the Discord. Feel free to submit any information. We got a measurements channel, screenshots, anything you have that would kind of help better place things or get the information on the map accurately. Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of it. Like I said, I don't foresee any serious bugs. I don't foresee any backwards compatibility issues with your existing JSON files or your existing coordinates stored in memory. If you do have problems, please hop on the Discord or send me a DM via the Starbase Discord. I'm sitting in there as well. I've got my name at the bottom left in the About section with my little ID tag. Feel free to poke me if you run into any bugs, issues, or backwards compatibility problems, so that I can jump on those quick. But yeah, otherwise that is version 2.2. Yeah.